So I've now started that. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We will have pauses throughout the training, so you can ask me specific questions. I know that sometimes virtual training is a little bit different than in person, but then hopefully Nearpod will be engaging enough. Please participate when you get an opportunity to. Because this training is online, there will be a lot of videos that come up. And if you guys want me to, I will send you the recordings. And so, but as the videos come up, the reason we have to do that is because I can't do an in-person training, and those are, most of them are from the University of Utah's website. But you will have instructions throughout this training that'll let you know where those videos are. It'll actually tell you it's an open-ended question, but that was the best way for me to put in the video. So thanks. If you wouldn't mind opening up a browser, and the materials that are on the top site, the schools.utah.gov, don't worry about going to that site yet, but go ahead and write that one down. That just lets you know where it will be found on our website. Most of the materials are there, but there are a few changes that are currently being made to that page. So within a week, it should be up and running, and you should be able to find all the materials you need on that site. However, for today's training, this bit.ly, the HTTPS, and I'll put that in the chat box as well. But this, actually, I can't put it in. Okay, so, but with this bit.ly, you will be able to go in and access any information from today's training. Usually in this training, we have what they call a red folder. And we have the student manual, which looks like, well, this is actually the teacher manual, and this is what it looks like. Usually you'll get one of these in person, but at today's training, that's not going to happen, so it's online. If you would like a paper copy though, go ahead and email me, and Kira and I, when we get into the office, can hopefully get those to you. There's also a parent manual that we use, that we usually hand out, and we also use the red folder. So those materials will be available to you at that bit.ly site. Today we will be working a lot in partners or in groups, if I can figure out how to work the breakout rooms. So if you guys will give me just, I was going to just say, like, when we go into the breakout rooms, Jerry, because you are also a co-host, I don't know if you can set up the breakout rooms for me. If not, then I will take some time to do that on a break, but I know that we're already starting late. But when you get in with your partners, if you'll take just a couple of seconds just to introduce yourself and let them know what you're currently reading, so that you guys can build a rapport with one another, that would be great. So if you could go to your bit.ly in those materials, and then if you look up manuals, you should see the Partners in Dyad Reading Manual. We'll be referring a lot to that in this training. So on this, the purpose of the Dyad reading is actually listed on page 7. But I just wanted to let you know it's for those struggling readers. So when you have teachers that know that they have a student that maybe needs some tier 2 intervention or just some extra support with reading, they are then referred for the program. So it's for a struggling reader to sit down and have one-on-one tutoring sessions with an adult. It's a targeted lesson to help enhance their reading instruction. But it's also a way for you to scaffold that instruction to make sure that you're meeting the student at their level. So the one thing that always catches people off guard is where it says down here that scaffolded reading in a very challenging text, which means it's usually 2 to 3 years above their current grade level. The reason, and I know you guys, that sounds really challenging, right? But the reason why is because then you can scaffold that student up to where you need them to be. And you can have the conversations about vocabulary, about fluency, about anything that you need to with the students. So I just wanted to give you kind of that purpose is on page 7. And then this is just something you guys can read for yourselves. So there's a question over here from Kelly, and it just says, like, where's the scaffolding? The scaffolding is when you're reading the text itself, you can then know what kind of supports the students need. Like if you can see that a student is struggling with a particular word or an understanding, you're able to scaffold and give them that support right at that point so that they don't have to struggle anymore. And then I just wanted to direct you to pages 8 and 9 in your manual. Those pages just talk about the responsibilities. So whether you're a coordinator or a director or a tutor, all of those are currently in that manual. It just kind of lets you know where you're at. And then I also wanted to let you know, like if you can go to page 12, it talks about sustaining the program. The one thing that you do want to do while you're setting up your tutoring sessions is make sure that you're not pulling students from their core instruction time. Sometimes I know in some schools, they'll send kids to get tutoring during the instruction time of reading, and that doesn't help them see what they should be doing at like with their normal aged peers. So try not to pull students during their core instruction time, during recess time, and then as a tutor, as you're talking with your tutors, try to make sure that they're transparent in communications with you and with parents, and then also that they're set up in a location that nobody questions what's going on, just for your own sake and for the sake of your tutors. So this is actually a collaboration board. And on that, it'll ask you like, what sources have you been able to leverage or access in order to recruit dependable volunteers? So if you guys could take a moment and fill that out for me, I would appreciate it. Can you guys see the posts as they're coming up? What other people are typing? Okay. Just wanted to make sure that aspect was working. There's a couple of you that were just able to join, so I just wanted to let you know that there is a Nearpod that we're using. So if you go into Nearpod, you can join as a student, and then there's a code. So I just put that in the chat box. I really like that idea, Wendy, of the neighborhood Facebook pages. And Marcy, your manual won't open. It should link directly from that bit.ly. Is anybody else having any problems with that? I'm going to add a link here in the chat box, and that will take you directly to that manual as well. Let me know if that works for you. So you guys are getting the shared drive and not necessarily the manual itself. You're muted. Okay.
Can I ask a question real fast? So I joined a little late, and it looks like in the post you're saying something about the shared drive or OneDrive with the manual. Where is that link? Where do I find that?
Which link are you looking for?
Just to access the manual.
Oh, to access the manual, I just added that. But I will go ahead and copy it right here as well.
You put it in the chat box?
I actually, yes, I'll put it in the chat box right now for the manual.
Thank you. I just don't see it in there. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, So some of those things I see is that we haven't used any volunteer yet, or pre-COVID we used parent volunteers, which is an awesome idea, right? Through the PTA or the PTO is a great idea. Some people have reached out to their, I just wanted to let you know, like some people have checked out with their church groups or their religion groups, or some people have done other combinations of those things. I love getting grandparents involved. I think that's a great idea. Can you guys see all of those posts? I hope. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of also let you know in the manual, and I'm not sure exactly which page, but this is the teacher recommendation form. And this is something that will be coming to the literacy directors or as coordinators, or this is the recommendation form. The one thing I wanted to bring your attention to is the student Lexile levels. And there are a couple slides in here. Are you guys familiar enough with the Lexile levels? Okay. So I also wanted to let you know, like scheduling your tutor sessions, you'll find that in the manual on page 12. Optimally, you want to meet 3 days a week, but they do say a minimum of 2. So if you could schedule 2 days a week for 15 minutes of Dyad or 15 minutes of supplemental instruction, so usually 30 minutes per session. Some people have said that their caseload gets so big that they're not allowed, or they don't have enough time to do 30 minutes. In that case, a lot of people have asked me which would be the most preferred method for students, whether they had to pick Dyad or supplemental. And the research has shown that if you can at least implement the Dyad portion, students will make greater gains. So I just wanted to answer that question for many of you right off the bat. Legal responsibilities, this is just for you to be aware of. When you're setting up policies with volunteers, make sure you're following the policies within your program. I had a nurse one time, because we, every year you have to take the universal precautions videos or trainings, right? And she used to always say, if it's wet and it's warm and it's not yours, don't touch it. Like, don't touch it unless you have gloves on, right? So she was great, but that's just something that I've always liked to think about too. So if you have a student that accidentally gets a bloody nose, or you have anything that happens, like, just make sure you're protecting yourself and your tutors. Of course, if you suspect any form of child abuse, we'll talk about your legal responsibilities on 17 and 18 to report. And then also, please talk to your tutors about being confidential and not necessarily talking, because sometimes your tutors are in your same neighborhoods. So if you have a grandma that's coming in and then she happens to be talking about this kid that she's tutoring and mentions a name at the grocery store or at the park, and then somebody else is like, that's my kid, or that's my niece or my nephew, sometimes that doesn't warm people up very much. So please be careful about confidentiality and talk to your tutors about that as well. There are also some material lists on pages 19 and 20 that gives you an idea of maybe some things that you may want as you're setting up your tutoring sessions, and it's definitely not complete. There are some things that some tutors that have added that they really appreciate. Does anybody have anything that may have some experience with tutoring before that they might want to add to that list that may not be included? Okay, and I'm not seeing anything in particular listed, so I will go ahead and move on. So now it's time for a question. So, are you guys seeing the question? Oh, it wants me to start the activity. Are you ready? So this is actually a 3-minute time period for you guys to think about how you're going to set up the program and any materials that you may need. Okay, so I noticed in the comments there were a lot of you that were saying we don't actually have the materials, or we don't know anything about it yet, so we're not quite sure how to set it up. So this is the great portion that we're going to move to at this point. So I wanted to let you know in your manual, there's also a lesson plan that you can use. And this just kind of breaks it down for you. It says like for the 15 minutes in Dyad, what you'll be doing is spending 1 to 2 minutes revisiting a book or the portion of the text that you've read. So bringing students back to the attention of, remember last time when you came to visit, we were reading about, and just kind of give them a rundown. So you're kind of revisiting the book or a portion of the book to get the students warmed up. And then you do new book instruction where you can like if you're introducing a new book, so you're either going to revisit the book that they were in or you're going to introduce a new book. And that's just a matter of like kind of doing a picture walk or talking about what you think the book's going to be about or giving them an idea of the theme. But then you're going to spend 11 to 14 minutes reading that book and doing the Dyad process. So the Dyad process is actually based off of, so the Partners in Dyad reading program is based off of their Lexile levels, and you guys will have access to this Nearpod as well. So I'll send this to you in the recordings, but this just kind of talks about, for those of you that aren't familiar, the Lexile levels is based off of their Acadience reading benchmark scores, and that's where you'll get that Lexile level. There's a little bit more detail here that talks about what it measures and why it measures it. But a lot of times people will talk about whether kids are at benchmark, below benchmark, or above benchmark. But the Lexiles actually tell you what kind of support, if they're going to need intensive support, strategic support, or just core support in that training. So their Lexile levels let you know if they're reading on that grade level. So this chart is very helpful, and it is also in your manual. It just kind of lets you know. So you can see kind of on the right-hand side, it talks about the dibbles. That's also the Acadience. For you, those of you that don't know, those are kind of interchangeable, but the Acadience scores, the Lexile levels are letting you know, like at grade 1, by the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year, where those students should be at. Some people are more familiar, and the Lexile levels are here, the guided readings here, and the DRAs are here for those of you that may want to know kind of how that breaks down. But as we mentioned before, you want to read 2 to 3 grade levels above the student's current Lexile level. So if you have a student who is reading at 240 words per minute, what grade level would you want to be reading at? So of course, if they're at 240, right, that's in grade 1, so you'd want to start reading something at a grade 3. Okay, but the thing that I should probably have not used that number. Dyad reading works great for students that are 2nd grade and above. For students that are in kindergarten and 1st grade, they're still learning those basic foundational skills of how to read. So some of your students at the end of 1st grade can start using some of the Dyad processes, but this is probably not something you're going to want to do with your kindergarten and 1st grade students. I do have resources for you for those students that are struggling that you can use or to implement in your programs to help those students. But I just wanted to let you know that this should be done with students grade 2 and above. So, and then a lot of people have asked me, like, if they have their leveled reading programs and they're not sure exactly what Lexile level a book is, they've asked me for some resources. So here's a couple websites you might want to jot down. If you click in the title or the ISBN number of those books, it will tell you, most of them have been cataloged on these resources and will give you their current Lexile levels of those books. So I just wanted to make sure that was available to you too. So this is just based off of some research, and that's why we have changed the STAR reading program to Dyad. But I just wanted to let you know, like in 2017 and 18, they actually did a pilot with 8 teachers. And what you'll see is 1 was a 2nd grade class, 3 of them were 3rd grade classes, 2 were 4th grade, and then there was a 5th grade with 1 special education class. But on average, I want you to kind of know what the 2nd grade progress was for second graders, how many Lexile levels were gained, 3rd graders, 4th graders, and 5th graders. So there's an overall average of 333 lexiles that were gained in a 1-year period by using dyad reading. So it is something that has been proven again and again to be very effective. I've noticed too, like if you look at 5th grade, we only have 117 lexiles, where at 2nd grade they have 442. Do any of you have an idea of why those numbers would be a little bit different that you would like to add? I think like a lot of it from what I've heard is just mainly, so Christy, that's a very good question. Like what is the average Lexile growth for a year? I think it depends on the student and how often you're doing the tutoring. But I know like if you take this combined average, that's pretty great progress. And so I can actually ask that question. I'm going to write myself a note. And then I can get back to you guys. But I know the gains have been great, and that's why we've moved to this process. But like they've talked about before, it's that text difficulty that seems to be the critical lever. If you're reading with students at their grade level, it's not pulling them up. And so that sweet spot is that critical lever of reading above. So it says, should our focus be on 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade and not so much in 1st? I wouldn't necessarily say that, Wendy. I would say that your focus, if you have a student that is a struggling reader, you are going to want to do some sort of supplemental instruction with them. It's just the dyad reading process itself works for probably the end of 1st grade, 2nd, and up. So you are still going to want to, those students that are referred in kindergarten and 1st grade, I have some resources for you that are also in these slides that you may want to work on, but it's the dyad process that you'll want to use for 2nd grade and up. And then Davis County actually did kind of a dyad group and a control group, and those were the gains that they made in their dyad groups versus students that didn't have the dyad process in 3rd grade classes. So just wanted to let you know, like that's a pretty huge gain. So I just wanted to let you know that in here, there's just the basic layout of the pages. And as we go through the process, you'll see that there's going to be materials that are listed, then there'll be an activity, they'll give you a tip, and then it'll ask you to record. So most of the activity pages, that's how they're broken down. I just wanted to give you that general idea. Okay, so this is actually a video that we're going to take some time to watch. And then you'll have 5 minutes to watch the video, and then we'll come back together as a group. The observations that you make can also be, we'll do a collaboration board when we come back. But one of the things that you'll notice is that if the teacher actually sits side by side with the student, they share one book, you use one smooth finger. So it will be the tutor that will be using the one smooth finger because the tutor will be more fluent than the student. And so that helps pick up the pace and the fluency with your students. And so you'll want to use that one smooth finger. Read with 2 voices, meaning that they're reading at the same time that you are, so that it helps them learn how to pronounce some of the words that they may be stuck on. So that's how you're kind of adding that scaffolding in at the same time. You also want to make sure, like when it says you read with 2 voices, sometimes you'll want to slow down a little bit to see what the student can read on their own. You may also want to make your voice a little bit lower so that you can listen to attentively to them to see if they're struggling or what other processes or helps they need, supports they may need along the way. But you want to make sure that they're keeping their eyes on the words. And like it talks about, you don't want to go too fast or too slow. You want to talk about any unknown words that are in the text, and you want to do it during that process. And so I think that's the biggest difference, is that you actually stop with the student, and if they mispronounce a word, then you can go back and say it at that point, then go back, or then have them read it again. But you're not having them review the whole sentence again. and you're allowing them that process or the time that they need to process, and make sure like when you are giving definitions, they're student-friendly definitions so that they know what they can and can't expect. Okay, so things to intentionally work on, it talks about like on page 32 and 33. If you're reading a narrative text, there is some questions that you can ask there. And then also, sorry, we had some people that got kicked out, and so I need to admit them. But then on page 33, it also talks about informational text. So it gives you kind of a rundown of questions that you can ask. But we just talked about like we'll intentionally be working on their vocabulary, their fluency, and their comprehension. And that's why part of this, when you do the supplemental reading, they work on the vocabulary, the fluency, and the comprehension. But you can also do that during the dyad reading process. So that's why if you were to pick one over the other, if you had to, that's why we're referring you to go to the dyad part first. And so what I would like to do is put you guys into, do you all have some chapter books? Because I know the emails got crazy and our email system was down for a while this morning. Do all of you have a chapter book or something in front of you that you can read when I send you the breakout rooms? And I know the breakout rooms are going to be different, right? Because you're not going to be able to have like one shared book. But if you can pretend that you have a student next to you and take like 3 minutes to practice each role, then you can have a 2-minute reflection together of what went well, what didn't go well. I will talk to you a little bit more when we come back, but I just wanted to kind of give you a chance to focus or to practice. So if you guys are okay, I'm going to go ahead and put you into breakout rooms. Okay, guys, I also forgot to let you know that I will be of the breakout rooms, and so don't let that scare you. It's just honestly there. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. So I didn't want to scare anyone, but I didn't mention that before. Did you guys think that the process, did it seem to go okay for you? For any of you that were able to practice that? It's fun looking at a screen to see if I see head shakes or thumbs ups or so thanks for those of you that can put your cameras on. So I just also wanted to let you know in the shared drive that I have shared with all of you. And Wendy, yes, you can come to the office and pick up a book, but we will have to talk about when that can happen because our office isn't open to the public yet. So we had to do some things like leave them on the shipping dock and have people pick them up there. So there are several weird things that we can work out. So just know that we will get you some books, or if I need to mail them to you, it might be something that we can do as well. They're just trying to work on all of that. But if you go back into that bit.ly that was shared with you at the beginning, and you go back into, and Wendy, that's a good question about what to do or what not to do. There were several things on there that I think that she did great. There were some other things on there. If you think about the dyad process that we did now, and there'll be another video that kind of shows you like the side to side and kind of that fluent reading with the student. So just keep that in the back of your mind about different questions that we can ask. I've noticed that the chat room is going crazy over here. So let me see if there's anything else that we need to do on that. That's not good that you can't both talk at the same time on Zoom. Can you in your breakout rooms? No? That doesn't work very well then, does it? I am so sorry. That's one of the reasons we're using Zoom today, because WebEx is typically what we've used through the state, and it does, their breakout rooms are very hard to manage there, but Zoom has done better. So I appreciate the feedback. And I'm sorry that you can't both talk on Zoom, so we'll have to try to figure that part out. I really like that, Paulina, that what the student's goal is in helping them to achieve what they want. And so thank you for adding that. But I just wanted to let you guys know in that bit.ly, if you go to manuals, there's also a parent manual in there that some people find very helpful. It's just different ideas to consider. If you kind of look on 23 and 25, so through 25, it gives you some ideas Remember we talked about questions you can ask with informational text versus narrative text. There's some more ideas in this manual for that as well. Some people like to print them off and have them for their tutors. I've noticed in our Dyad manual, they have kind of more of a picture of what to do with that, whereas in this parent manual, it's more listed in question form. So I think it just depends on the preference of your tutors, which one you might want to provide for them. So I just wanted to let you know there's an additional ideas to consider in that manual. So now, you guys, we've got about 10 more minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then we'll take a break for 15 minutes, okay? Because I know that WebEx trainings can be pretty exhausting, but that will help us with the Dyad portion, and then we'll get into the supplemental reading part. So we're now going to take some time to watch a video and then note your observations of things that went well in the lesson, as well as areas for improvement, just like the other one. And then we'll have a collaboration board of what you notice between the two. And then, like I said before, here are some kindergarten through first resources that you may want to use with those students, those struggling readers. If anybody has some additional ideas of supports that you can do for kindergarten and first grade, you're welcome to add them in the chat box. So Wendy, you asked if we can have access to the videos. In that shared drive that we have on that bit.ly that has the Dyad materials, and I'm not sure, Sabrina, if you were able to see my message in the chat box that lets you know where those materials are. But if you guys will notice in there, it'll talk about additional resources, and that is next steps that we'll be getting to next. The manual should be in here, but the videos are also listed down here. So if you click on that videos link, there is a Google Doc. So there'll be a fluency and a high frequency, which we'll get to after the break. But there's the videos for partner training, and there's access to all of those videos on there. So I have that included in the drive for you. And then so Kelly, the reason that you're reading the 2 grade levels ahead is so that you can help bring that student up a level and you can challenge them. If you're reading at their grade level, so if you have a student that's in 4th grade, for instance, and they're reading on a 1st grade level, if you keep reading to them at a 1st grade level, they won't move up and beyond that source. So if their Lexile level puts them in 1st grade and you're reading to them at a 3rd grade level, then it helps build their vocabulary, it helps build their fluency. And so that's the 2 to 3 years above, that's really where that sweet spot is, to pull students up the Lexile levels instead of keeping them where they currently are. And the answer is yes, it will frustrate them in some ways. And so you and your tutors are going to know, sorry guys, somebody else got kicked out that I have to hurry and admit, but you guys will know as you're reading with students, if you start at 3 grade levels ahead and you know that that student is struggling, then take it down to 2. But then I wouldn't go beyond the 2. Like if you need to go a little bit lower, that's fine. But what I've noticed is that some students will get frustrated at first, but the more they get used to the idea and the more exposure they have, the quicker they pick. It's not only the quicker they pick up, but they become less frustrated because they know that you and their tutors are there to help support them through that learning. And so as long as you're building that relationship with students and they know that that's the process, like we talked about earlier, you're asking them what their goals are and if they want to become better readers, they know that you're there to support them. They're usually, I haven't seen many people that get really frustrated with that. So Christy, that's a good question as well. And there's a teacher recommendation form, but I also wanted to caution you, some programs don't let people know or let their teachers know, or they don't mention it at faculty meeting, or it's not in a staff letter that says, hey, we're going to be adding this tutoring program. If you need some students that need some additional reading support, please refer them. And there is a teacher recommendation form in the manual that they use, and that's how you know where they're at. And that's how they get referred. Okay. Are there any further questions that we have? Okay, so there's a collaboration board right here. And it's just one thing that you've learned today or you like about the dyad reading approach. Okay, I appreciate your participation, you guys. Thank you for doing that collaboration board. I know we started, what, 20, 30 minutes late, and I apologize. So I've been trying to catch you up really quick, but we have until 12 o'clock at this training, but I want to give you guys a good solid 15 minutes. So we'll come back at, let's just even make it, yeah. So we'll come back at 11, or I'm sorry, you guys, at 10:55. So we'll come back at 10:55. We'll give you 17 minutes. So go get a drink, go walk around, go see what other kind of damage may be happening outside. I don't know if it's still blowing where your guys are at, but go take care of yourselves for 17 minutes, and then I will see you back at 10:55, and we'll get started on the supplemental reading part. Okay?
To them every day. So it was a station they would move to. And I loved it because I could literally gather them up at the end of the night. And this is when my car did have a cassette player, and I could listen to them on my way home. And it was a great mode to prove to parents if their kids were reading like a robot, that they weren't putting expression in. And to see that maybe that reading level was a little bit too hard for them versus trying to push them a little more to be more fluent and expressive in their reading.
Okay. And I just wanted to add some of the other comments that I see on here. Somebody asked if the fluency passages that were part of the STAR reading program, if that's part of the Next Steps materials, but it actually was part of the STAR reading materials. And so that's why a lot of times, a lot of people like those passages. That's part of what I'm trying to get back put on our website for any of you that are interested. So please know that they will be there on the website if I can get them there. And then as far as, there was a very positive comment that just says, I love having the students track their own fluency progress because it is very intrinsically motivating for them. And then when they move up on this chart, do we also move them up on the dyad reading level or to stay 2 levels ahead? You want to keep, when your students progress, you want to bump them up as well. And so if they're bumping on the fluency part, I would go ahead and keep them where they are. Now I'm going back and thinking about this question. But you want to make sure, look at their Lexile levels when you get them. So the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, to make sure that you're staying on that progress to know if they're 2 to 3 grade levels above. Does that help with that question? Okay. And then having kids put a page in their reading record. Jessica, did you want to talk? You already did talk about that. So is there anything else anybody would like to add to the fluency portion? You're still muted.
Oh, darn it.
You're good. Nope. No.
You can hear me on my other device. I have a,
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me. All right. I was going to say the issue, like I wanted to go before the school board often with the speed aspect. I worried what other people's opinions were on the speed aspect. When kids see that timer going, I feel like they're starting to speed read and they are not focusing as much on what they're reading. And I laugh because I wanted to stand before the school board and say, this is not how we want kids to talk. We don't want to, blah, 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 because you can't even understand what they're saying. I feel that when we do time, which I get you're trying to see how many words they read in a minute, like how many words we type in a minute, but the issue deflects them. I don't know how you can hide that timing. So that's my thought.
Yeah, it would be nice, right? And I think that that's why we don't want to spend, like you want to spend more of the time working on the comprehension part, which we all know, right? But I just look at it as that fluency, or when you're doing that timed recording, it's just for that 1 minute to kind of get a baseline of where they're at. I don't know that I would work on that. I mean, I probably would work on it every day to see where they're at, but I I totally agree with what you're saying, is that there are just some things that we work on, right? I don't know how to answer that question. Does anybody else have better feedback that they would like to add to that?
Well, it's even the point, like they neglect commas, periods when they should be taking a breath. And I saw that more when I go in and volunteer, you know, over these last few years. And I just thought, no, this isn't what you want to be reading like.
Anyway, we're working on the expression and everything else in that part too, right?
Anyway, I don't know.
Okay, so now is the word starting part. And this is the part with next steps, the University of Utah. And so I kind of wanted to, like it says, it'll go through pages like 55 through 63. It's that portion of the next steps, and that's why the University of Utah Reading Clinic is added to this page. So if you forget any of the steps, remember that it'll talk through the materials, the activities. There are certain things that you're going to want to say to the students as you work through this portion, but we'll talk about them kind of as we go. I noticed I did want you to draw your attention. So we're going to be doing the word study first. And if you will go to page 55, there are certain words that you're going to say or that you're going to watch for in the video. And so before I start that activity, I'll read it to you guys from my book, right? But if you wanted to go to page 55, there are certain things, there will be bold anchor words. So this is kind of what, if you guys were coming to a training, right, you would see that that's kind of like a bold anchor word. I should probably just take them out of the bag, that might help. So your anchor words are kind of will be at the top, and then you'll notice everything else isn't bold, but they'll put their anchor words across the top of the matrix, and you'll see what it looks like in a second, okay? But there are some bold anchor words, and then you'll ask the students, you'll specifically say, and it's printed on this page, where does it go? Point to the words in each column and read them, right? So you'll see that as you go through. And then you'll also say, like, what is the vowel pattern and what is the vowel sound? So if you guys happen to forget, it's right here, it's in the manual. You can go back and watch the video at any time. This is something that's really nice to do when you're in person, because then I can say, remember, this is what you say, this is how you do that, right? But we're winging it, like I'm sure all of you are. And so we're going to take some time to start this activity and watch this video. I think this portion is you'll have about 10 minutes because we'll do 7 minutes at first. And I just want to make sure if anybody's having problems with connections. But when I start seeing your comments come in, that lets me know that you're ready to move on. So I can see that the time is up on that video. Did you guys have enough chance to watch it and finish it? Okay. I keep looking for a little head nod. Like, okay. So then the spelling portion is in a separate video that was on that website that I kind of pointed out to you guys if you wanted to go to that. But I also have it here in Nearpod. So, but it's the one thing that I wanted to make sure that you're drawing your attention to is that when you're working on the spelling part of it, when students are spelling it out, they can either say the letter name or they can say the sounds as they're working on that. But you want to make sure, like if they're learning how to spell the word hat, for instance, that they're either doing at or they're doing HAT, so that you're kind of listening to them so that it helps with that correction part with the spelling. There's tons of research out there that lets you guys know that when a student can actually spell a word, they retain it in memory more so than they do in just reading it. And so the spelling portion is actually pretty important too. And I'm sorry that once again, we're going to another video. I hope that it's teaching you as much as it's a lot more fun to do this in a group, you guys, and with a partner, I promise you. But this is what we get to do for today. So thank you for hanging in there with me. And we'll go ahead and start that video. tell you all that I keep forgetting to push record again. So when you do get this recording, you'll be like, where's that whole section? Just contact me. I'll be doing another training in a month, and hopefully I'll get better at the recording part. We had like 2 other hosts that were supposed to come in and do this training with me so that we could make sure all of that stuff went smoothly. One of them had a power outage and the other one had some damage from the wind. And so they're like, we can't make it today. And I'm like, okay. So thank you again for hanging in there with me. The other only thing that I have to add is, well, there's another video here and it just talks about this is the why. And it's just kind of if you guys want to take the time, we can watch the video. But it's just, so we'll go ahead and get that started. So go ahead and do that. And just a funny story, I think my dog, we had 7 wild turkeys walking through our yard the other day. Apparently somebody bought 2 turkeys and then let them mate, and then I don't know. We had 7 wild turkeys just walking through our yard. So when the dog starts barking, I'm like, I wonder if it's more turkeys. I live in Ogden, by the way, so it's not it's not like a farm country. I live on a main street in Ogden. If I lived on a farm, I might expect it. So then I just wanted to open it up, you guys. You are more than welcome to ask me any questions. And I really appreciate your time. I know that we started late. I know there's been technical issues. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And if any of you guys have any further questions, I will stay on as long as you want. And any feedback you guys have for me, like for virtual trainings, like if it was engaging enough, if it was frustrating to have too many videos, if I didn't allow you enough time to ask questions or answer them, let me know. Christy, I see your question on there about getting contact information for Emmanuel once the office reopens. Are you asking specifically, do you want to know when the office is going to be available? Or just having it maybe dropped off at the dock for you to come pick up at a later point?
Just to pick up, I don't even know where your office would be. Are you with the district office? I don't even know where you are.
So we're actually in Salt Lake. It's 250 East, 500 South.
Okay, is there any, I'm not even close to that. Is there any way to get it mailed? Like, is that against COVID regulations at all? Or?
If you can actually like send me an email, if you'll send me an email with where you would like it mailed to, then I will go through the proper. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I get your email?
Oh, yes. So it's Jamie, Jamie, Robinson, SON, at schools with an S at the end, .utah.gov.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for the feedback too. Marcy, isn't it a fun year? It's crazy. Marcy, you can't retire. You have the training we need. Sorry, you're stuck. I have lots of teachers I know that are saying the same thing. One of the co-hosts that had some damage to the house in the power outage actually said, if I could take an early retirement, this would be the year I would do that. All right, you guys, thank you for all of your help today.